Oil and gas prices have been on an absolute pump lately, so I thought I'd cover 3 big players on the ASX in the oil and gas sector. We got Woodside Petroleum, we got Santos, and we got OSH. I created this spreadsheet, got all the data, and we're going to look purely at what currently exists. The only difference really between these companies now, aside from this spreadsheet, is the fact that some of them have different projects going on, so there is some more research to be had aside from this spreadsheet. But this is an overview of each of the companies. Now, this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. Consider this as education and entertainment purposes only, nor am I recommending to buy or sell any of these stocks that I talk about today. Now, real briefly, I have an interest in OSH, OSH. I bought $5 calls for May, and so I'm quite bullish on that one out of these 3. I think the equity value shows that there's a lot of room for growth, and I'll go into that a little bit later, as well as a chart as well. So I created this spreadsheet here to break down the numbers between the production, the sales revenue, sales volume, the current break-even price as I currently understand it to be, as well as the average realized price for what was sold on the market. So for example, WPL, the break-even price, and the definition of break-even price is actually break-even plus 10%. That's the definition used across the board. So $15 to $20 roughly for WPL. We've got the break-even of around $20 per barrel after some hedging that the company does for STO, and OSH is around $40. It's probably more like $38 because they get better break-even numbers because they produce more in terms of gas than they do for oil. So we can see here the PCP numbers, which is previous corresponding period. This is a comparison between Q4 2020 and Q4 2019. So you can see the numbers have tanked pretty significantly for Woodside Petroleum, also for OSH, whereas Santos actually rose 11% in terms of volume increase, which is quite fascinating to see. So the output has actually increased and their sales have increased by 40%. So quite interesting numbers for Santos, quite bullish on Santos as well. Overall, if I were to rank OSH, Santos, and Woodside based on the numbers, I'd probably put Santos in number 1 and a very, very close second for OSH as number 2. And Woodside's got some interesting numbers that we're going to go through as well for the half-year numbers of 2020. So keep in mind, the full year data should come out in the next 2 weeks for all 3 of these stocks, sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So this is 6-month-old data, so half-year 2020 ending 30th of the 6th, 2020. So these are the numbers that are about 5.5 months old at the moment, but that's perfectly fine. It still shows us a good insight into what was happening during the COVID period. So when it comes down to Woodside Petroleum, we can see that after the gross profit, if we factor in additional expenses, we can see it's negative $4 billion after the gross profit. So we can see here, if I bring up the data, we can see why. Woodside Petroleum had large impairment losses sitting around 3.7 mil USD. So quite a fair bit in impairment. Most of it appears to be attached to Wheatstone here. So we have a total equity position. If we factor in the cash, the total assets minus liabilities, we end up with a total equity position of 12 billion for Woodside Petroleum, 7.2 for Santos, and 5.6 for OSH. Now, the interesting thing here is that this is all US dollars. All these companies appear to report in US dollars because the sale of oil barrels and LNG is in US dollars. So when we convert it to Australian dollars for equity purposes, it's 7.3 billion for OSH. And the interesting thing is, OSH is trading right near its market cap. Its market cap is trading right near its equity position. 8.5 billion Aussie market cap, 7.3 billion in equity. And this is really why I took the position in OSH. It is the closest to equity. It's not exactly churning down money. We can see here it's currently comprehensive loss for the quarter at negative $263 million. But we're going to take a look at the oil price and the gas price in the future to see why this might turn around in the near term. And same thing with Santos. They're losing 277 mil for the period. And for Woodside, it's more like about $1 billion if we ignore the impairment of assets. So what we're looking at is the gap between equity. So Woodside has the largest gap, and then STO, and then OSH. So let's take a look at the charts. We got oil first and foremost, oil and a bit of a pump. So the stock with the biggest amount of oil exposure will make the biggest gains out of this move. We've got almost a 2.5 year bearish trend. whether the horizontal, whether the trend line. Either way, it's broken up to the upside, and this is WTI. Whether we look at WTI or crude, it doesn't matter. They sort of move in tandem, so we still have a really, really strong bullish chart. We're basically at pre-COVID levels, not pre-COVID highs, but pre-COVID levels, which is really healthy for the oil price. And we got natural gas as well, a swing to the upside. We've had a really cold winter up north is sort of the reason and justification behind the rise in natural gas, particularly in the US and Japan. Japan is a huge consumer of LNG. So the demand is just going up, the supply is steady, and we can see the swing back to the upside here for LNG. Now, if we look at Woodside Petroleum first and foremost for the chart, it came close to the 61.8 but couldn't quite get there. And we have a nice gap fill. So I think Woodside was the first one to do the gap fill. We had a nice consolidation here at $23 right before the rally, breaking out to $26.50. So it was a really nice move to the upside. Now, we'll see a consistent theme here of recent selling for a whole week for all the oil basket stocks. The reason for that is I believe the Oz 200 or the XTO was tanking during this time. It was coming down off real heavy, so it dragged all the stocks down. And we see a nice bounce here off this strong support level, which is the basically the gap here was where it started. So nice big bounce. Woodside, not a big fan of it at the moment. Santos looking the best out of all the charts, I think, at the moment. We have a fib level almost hitting the 61.8% perfectly, or 78.6, sorry. It hit the 61.8, consolidated, rallied to the 78.6. It's now a level of resistance, and we can see if we take off the fib charts, we've got a really nice gap fill. I decided to pull back again, pull back because of the extra sell-off. We're now seeing a rally back up to the upside. And if I bring up oil search, we can see there's a beautiful consolidation. It dipped for a little bit, rallied, but we still haven't had that gap fill. We're still sitting near equity position as well. So I have my $5 calls here. I got $5 right there, and I'm targeting May, so I've got quite a bit of time to get there. I really do think that's the target. I mean, that's the target I'm aiming for. So really looking forward to a push to the upside for oil search, particularly with new projects coming in the pipeline as well. So from a TA perspective, it looks healthy, looking for that gap fill at least to 494. That's a target that I've got in mind. And really, that's pretty much the breakdown, a real quick summary of all the three major oilies and their charts as well, along with the commodity prices. If you found any of that helpful at all, please do hit that sub button. I appreciate that very much. Otherwise, have a good one.